By 2016, Lagos will have a new landmark. The Eko Atlantic city. A planned city with 7 districts will be developed on land reclaimed from the Atlantic Ocean. Located on Lagos Bar Beach, the proposed development is anticipating upon completion for 100,000 residents and 250,000 commuters flowing daily to the new island. Adjacent to Victoria Island, the city planners say Eko Atlantic will rise as the next generation of property in Africa. Expected to be around 4 square miles, the city will satisfy needs for financial, commercial, residential, and tourist accommodations with a state-of-the-art high-tech infrastructure in line with modern and environmental standards. These standards will offer the city's residents modern water, waste management, security, and transportation systems. Eko Atlantic will also offer its residents an independent source of energy generated specifically for the city. Eko Atlantic hopes to be a powerhouse for Nigeria. The project is expected to have a positive impact on Lagos as well as Nigeria in general.
It is a new economy in the making within the Eko Atlantic city, and this will further reposition Lagos in its bid to become the leading and the preferred mega city within the continent of Africa.
Throughout the project's lifetime, thousands of jobs will be created, as well as providing business and residential districts for Nigeria. To date, about 3 million cubic meters has been sandfilled and placed in the reclamation area, while about 35,000 tons of rock has been delivered to the site. In certain parts of Bar Beach, the land being reclaimed can already be seen. Dredgers, large ships which move sand, are working around the clock, filling the area with sand where the city will be built. Testing of the sea defense system called the Great Wall of Lagos found place at the DHI Institute in Copenhagen, Denmark, where models were tested for the worst storm that possibly can happen in the area. Data analysis by computer models show that the Great Wall of Lagos will keep Lagos safe from the worst tidal surges that can be expected. When it's complete, the Great Wall of Lagos will be over 7 kilometers long. It is made from tens of thousands of concrete blocks called acropods. The acropods weigh 5 tons each, and they interlock loosely to form an effective barrier that dispels the force of the waves and provides the primary armored sea defense. Beneath the acropods are various layers of rock that function as the secondary armor and core. According to the Lagos State government, the development will also have a positive environmental impact. Its purpose is to stop the erosion of the Lagos coastline.
An engineering challenge for us to protect our land from the sea, and in doing so, create something new also out of this. A new city that represents our current outlook to life, the kind of life we want to live, the kind of city-state that we want, and also the kind of human developmental index we want to see in our people, the opportunities to change life, a total remake of the people and the state of Lagos.
The emergence of the city is expected to relieve the pressure on the increasing population of Lagos State, but many Lagosians are doubtful that these promises will be realized. They refer to the unexpected erosion caused by stone walls built by the British in the early 20th century to allow smooth passage to the harbour. Residents from Victoria Island, Lekki and the new residential developments along the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway are worried about the safety of their homes, while some local communities have noticed an increase in ocean surges and coastal erosion since the sand filling and dredging activities for Eko Atlantic City began, and have lost property and have been displaced as a result.
But the problem we have now is about this dredging. The dredge here is many of the causes. Because I'm over 60 years in this village, something like this has not been happening.
So who are those dredging the sand?
Okay, they dredge the sand from Lekki Beach, the Bar Beach. That is the sand. They use that sand to fill that place up.
Where did they dredge the sand from?
They dredge from here. They go like this. When the ship loaded finish, they will go back and offload it
to Bar Beach.
To the Bar Beach.
Many who have been monitoring the problems of erosion along Lagos coastal communities said that it is unfortunate that such a project will be embarked upon without proper consultation with stakeholders.
Well, I think that any project which will have human habitation, which will affect people, will affect the environment, has to be carefully thought through. It has to undergo an environmental impact assessment, which is under the laws of Nigeria. And I think that it has to be also participatory, that people who live around the area should know exactly what is going on. I'm not just condemning the project offhand, but I'm just saying that based on what we know about climate change and sea level rise, and I think any project on the waterfront has to be seriously considered for impacts that it may have, negative. There could be a few positive impacts. But I think that projects like that should not be driven by the business community. It must be driven by common sense and the results of science.
Another fear being raised by experts is that Victoria Island and Lekki area in Lagos do not have many exit routes in case of disaster from the ocean.
If we are not very careful, all the things we are trying to do, we may end up losing a lot of the infrastructure and the natural environment that we are to protect, all of which will eventually lead to some socio-economic changes and losses, which can create some confusion among the people. The basic response of federal government, therefore, will be to try to reduce the risk. If we do not do that, which will be to adjust and to adapt properly, we may end up, because what the Eko Atlantic is saying is that we have lost land due to coastal erosion. We are trying to adapt back to make sure that that land we are able to use. But the structure we are going to put in, if care is not taken, it can even lead to more negative things rather than developing the place. And that's what is called maladaptation. You can introduce something in an attempt to adapt that can create more problem than what you are trying to adapt to. And therefore, there's a need that we must have a very good analysis of the net sea level rise risk. What are the ecological risks? What are even the political risks?
The Atlantic coast of West African countries has been exposed to erosion for a number of years. Lagos, the biggest city along the coast, experiences regular flooding in areas lying below the sea level, whilst the coastline gradually loses land to the sea. The fishing communities and residents of the new urban settlements risk losing their homes and livelihoods. In fact, some observers say many intending investors may not be aware of the inherent danger of the project because Eko Atlantic City is to sit right in the Atlantic Ocean and the water must flow no matter how hard it is being pushed, because that is its path and it must go through it no matter the number of years it will take. Driving through the one strip of road now enlarged that leads to the Eko Atlantic city, the first thing that comes to view is the ocean itself, followed by large construction machine hauling very big rock boulders into the ocean and filling them with sand. Oceanographers and marine researchers say the state has been identified as belonging to one of 25 countries in the world that are the most vulnerable to climate change, and this has become evident in rising sea levels and changing rainfall pattern in the past few years.
Things that Nigeria could do, or the government of Lagos State could do, before the sort of project which I've seen in a mock-up, just in drawings and computer simulations and all that. If they are going to go through with it and they're intent on doing it, then they must have done a feasibility study in which they think it will be profitable. But things that are financially profitable are not always environmentally sensible, and this is the concern that I have personally as a marine scientist, and I think other people in the community have as well. That here we are talking about sea level rise, what could happen to people. We've seen an upsurge in disasters on coastal zones in the last 10 years. The tsunami in Southeast Asia, where 1,000 people died in the Philippines just last month, floods in New Orleans and so on. So why are we trying to do something which will eventually, maybe, be destroyed? And mind you, what happens in environmental management is that where you have doubts, then the precautionary principle must apply. That you say, because of that principle, let us not do it. It's not a question of after 10 years, you find that, mistakes have been made, people's lives are at risk, then abandon ship and jump somewhere. It doesn't happen like that with human habitation.
According to them, Lagos is characterized by lowland coastal areas and sandy beaches that have already suffered serious impact of climate change due to high tide and poor drainage of its lowland feature. They also say Nigeria needs about 50 years of data to be able to determine the level of sea rise, and the Eko Atlantic city could prove to be a disaster since it is near impossible to create artificial land right in the ocean amidst the forces of climate change, which is further worsened by construction and mining activities along the seashores.
Engineering is the basic thing they are doing, the seawall, the ground, the barrier, everything, and that's one of the dangers. I'm sorry, I don't hate engineers, but I always tell them that they don't look at issues from multidisciplinary approach. I create a barrier and it will stop it. This is the height of the wave, this is the frequency of the wave, this is the mass of the water, and this is the energy that will hit the wall. If the mass of the wall is greater than the mass that will hit the wall will stand.
Eko Atlantic City, the planners claim, will become a financial hub for Nigeria once it comes to life. It will also help solve the ever-growing population problem of Lagos State, one of the fastest-growing megacities in the world. But the cloud of doubt that hangs over the viability of the city is one that has to do with the possibility of creating land in the path or home of water. Some observers say it is impossible to create a city on land in the path of water because water will have houses or the settlement, and this could spell disaster to many.
We are proposing that whatever we are going to do, there must be a model that will show the predicted sea level changes in a range of scenarios, the time series, incremental change, what are the shear events, the frequency. We must have a model that will form those changes that will take place. They must provide an understanding of the associated impacts on existing coastal systems, as well as on the infrastructure and property of the people. We must be able to have good guidelines and implications to future coastal development. which must be included in the Lagos Coastal Development Guidelines?
It's a very wide thing. You can't have a few sentences of advice. The advice I have is that make sure you study things very well. Make sure you fund research. Make sure you consult people. That's the advice I have. The people in government are educated people, better educated maybe than myself. I don't know. But the point is that there has to be consultation. It has to be participatory. It has to be brought to public debate. We live in a democracy. This is not a military regime where you have something on paper and then you just go with soldiers or with a task force and carry it out. It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, as a scientist, I know that it's obvious you have some reservation, and I know that you've done some research and stuff.
Yeah.
Could you just let us through into some of the things that are really bothering you now?
Okay, what bothers me is that they say 1 meter of sea level rise is equivalent to 38 centimeters of displacement of coastal shoreline. So if we go according to that, it means that in about 100 years' time, we would have had that should happen every 10 years, about 400 meters of shoreline gone in Lagos. Therefore, the shoreline that we're seeing here on Victoria Beach, on Bar Beach, will be, by my calculation, maybe around St. Saviour's Cathedral, around State House, around Onikon. Is that the sort of thing that you know about and you still want to build a barrier? They say, the sea level rise, Eko Atlantic city is going to stop the waves. What about the next beach? You see, when you stop waves on one area, the waves tend to divert and start eating up the next beach. So what is going to happen to, let's say, Lekki, if there's a movement of sand? You can't just build skyscrapers from Badagry to Calabar, to block the waves from, attacking the beach in Nigeria. So these are the considerations that I'm saying. One problem is going to lead to another, because they say climate change is a threat multiplier. It's going to remain that way, and I think that they should not just see this as anarchy or aimless criticism. Well, the thing I think that should be done now is to actually, in a civilized manner, join in this sort of debate. I think the press in Nigeria, both the electronic press and the published media, have been very, very good at environmental advocacy. And I think that it should be a political issue as well. Somebody should call for a debate in the Lagos State House of Assembly and that sort of thing to revisit what is being done along the shoreline. It's not enough for the state to have the published, which is a good thing, State of the Environment 2010, or they have a high-profile symposium every year in which they invite people. It's opened by the governor of the state, and everybody goes away. The point is, what are the findings of these symposia and seminars? What are the action points from them? Like we're talking now, I've been around so many seminars for the past 20 years that I've been living around Lagos, and I worked in the Institute for Oceanography. What I always find is, what is the action point? And if you've taken any action, has there been something like an appraisal? Has there been monitoring? Has it been good? What are the impacts? But we talk at times and we go away, and the government or governments in Nigeria usually take people for granted. Okay, they've talked and we've had them. Now let's go back to the business people and continue what we're doing. That shouldn't be the case, because a lot of businesses, once they make their profits, they move away, maybe go to another country, maybe go to another part of the country. The disaster you have there, that's your own problem. Then they vote another money to go and repair the disaster that is done. Why not forestall disaster? Why not have a package, a disaster risk reduction package ready? I mean, you look at this, talk about these tall buildings. What's going to happen if there's a disaster? And Lagos has had a very bad history of fires in tall buildings. The Independence Building went, Necom House went, NCR House went. So now you want to have a whole city full of skyscrapers. What kind of energy are you going to use there? Is it going to be with generators and so on? these things in a country that is talking about environmentally friendly development and zero carbon, it doesn't look to me as if what is planned in Lagos is in line, in keeping with energy efficiency. I think it's just the other way.
But for the planners, the concept of this project is to restore land lost to coastal erosion that has affected the ocean since the late 1950s and to provide a permanent solution to erosion.
Eko Atlantic City, like I keep saying, is the saving grace for Victoria Island and the island in general, because it was fast disappearing. What is happening in Alpha Beach today happened on Amadou Bello Way a few years ago, that everything was disappearing. All those property along that stretch, waterlogged, they were all disappearing. Look at the area today. The state government has turned a liability into an asset. Everybody's enjoying life along that stretch today because of what the state government did first, which is the permanent solution, and to reconstruct that road. With regards to Eko Atlantic City, we have an agreement, the state government with the developer, what to do, what not to do, how to do it, how not to do it. And there's a monthly report that the state government produce. There's a monthly report that the developer produce and hand over to us regularly. And all the no's, don'ts is all there. And believe me, they are adhering to that contract.
While the debates for and against Eko Atlantic City go on, the questions begging for answers are: can Lagos coastline accommodate such a project? And can the state government make public its environmental impact assessment?
We'd love to hear from you. Do you have a comment or questions? Do send them to us by email on earthfile@channelstv.com.